Doc shared this to me. I don't know why I keep saying it like that. Doc shared to me this yesterday for a topic suggestion, and I was thrown off by this. And I read the article, then I watched Asmongold's reaction about this. So I have some questions. So I don't know if you want to introduce this topic, Doc, which is the Activision Blizzard
Please.
diversity tool.
Yeah. So as far as like the Activision diversity tool, it's some company that was working with MIT to essentially come up with. It looks like a registry, some kind of it's like a data graph. Not data graph. There's like a better word for it. But essentially, what they're doing is they're taking information on all the characters they've put out in all of the two major video games like COD and Overwatch and stuff like that, and then they are trying to quantify their diversity. So they're taking into account,
yeah, dude, it's creepy.
like the amount of black characters and white characters and their socioeconomic backgrounds. Is also like what grade of white, what like grade of black, depending on the culture.
Question.
Like,
are you talking about the characters themselves or the people playing the game?
no, the characters themselves.
So they're saying like what percentage of people are using like the black guy with dreads? What percentage of people are using the Thor
Not yet. I don't think it's gotten that deep. So from what I can tell and from what I read, like you have like right there, like the small graph in the background, you can see ability, body type, gender identity, sexual orientation, culture, ethnicity, and age. Essentially, what they're doing is they're trying to fill in the gaps. For like, okay, so we need an Asian character who's also really poor and a short guy who's also fat, like, judging by the graphs. And then they create that character. That way, they have like a more cohesive and complete spectrum of characters.
All right, I fucked up. We're now working again. Recap, Doc, everything I messed up on.
Angels
Gotcha.
blind.
Well, just to recap, so this video game company that made Call of Duty and World of Warcraft and all that stuff, they've been using this diversity tool to essentially fill in the gaps for the characters that they put in their games. So when they need to figure out what isn't being represented, this Filipino people of this age and of this socioeconomic background and stuff like that, they take into account all the characters they currently have, make a registry, and then based off the registry, fill in the gaps using spreadsheets and charts and stuff like that. So essentially, they were pretty proud of it too, and they showed it off. And immediately when the public saw it, it just looks like phrenology and eugenics.
Because they posted a blog about it first, right?
Yeah, they did. And even in the blog, like it was almost like it was really creepy too, because they say that the baseline was like wealthy, able-bodied white guy, and that's what they're not trying to do. So they've already called out anybody who's white and like middle class or up, like they're a negative. And so you basically have already established racism on that front. From there on, they're also quantifying diversity and touting off, like, look at us, look how diverse we are. It's a way to suppress their own in-house work culture that's had issues with diversity.
Which reminds me of a joke you said about like a quota and a checklist, so like make sure we got this amount of blacks and Asians and Mexicans. Like you said this before, I swear.
Yeah. Well, I said it because I was working with a company and I saw a term thrown around called diversity quota, and I was just like, what the fuck? It was like, do you want me to trade you a black guy for an Asian guy? Like, what? That sounds so crazy. Like,
wow, that's wild. Hey,
so
between companies, like, hey, I need more blacks. How many Mexicans you got? Because I can trade you 2 Mexicans for 2 blacks.
Yeah, it kind of seems that way.
That's wild.
Like, I ain't going.
So for them to do, sorry, John, I've already.
Hey, I would like to point out. Y'all both traded for black people. Let's hear it.
I was about to say,
like,
I'm technically half Mexican, half white. Doc's Mexican, and you're one black. So like, we have to might trade me or trade one of you for the even. I don't know.
I think we got we are pretty diverse podcast.
I like to think so.
I'm a couple shades of black.
Sorry, Doc. Go on.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, man. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just it's this really mechanical thinking by corporations that's creating these kinds of mentalities, and I think it's terrifying. So when they put out the blog post, they were super proud of themselves. They pat themselves on the back, and everybody freaked out because it looks like phrenology and eugenics. And if you guys have ever seen Django Unchained, that one scene where he breaks apart the guy's skull so that he can point out the divot in his brain. That
I remember the exact scene.
Like super submissive.
Yeah.
That's phrenology. And so, like, this is just like a crapshoot away from that, and think that this is like the scariest future we could have. Like, if we're so obsessed with diversity that we.
Speaking of phrenology, quick question for you. Depending how well versed you are in this. So I was watching, like I said, I think when we started out, I don't know if I edited that part out or not when it comes to fixing this. I was watching Asmongold react to this, and he brought up a thing which I didn't specifically read if that was going on, but he said basically with this, depending on your race, sex, orientation, that could potentially affect your DPS. Like if the character is a black, gay, something else, apparently they might do more damage. And I was like, that I didn't read the full blog because it was like I just didn't, to be honest with you, and I didn't have the time to dive too far into it to confirm if that's the case. So that's why I want to pose you that question. Like, is that what they're doing with this? Like, are they, one, trying to get their quota of diversity, and then two, letting that diversity affect their ability in the game?
I don't think they used it to like create characters in game beyond.
John's reaction was hilarious.
Beyond like character sketches, if that makes any sense, like a concept of a character, like a poor Middle Eastern man who is gay because according to the charts they need one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what they were using it for. They weren't necessarily being like, well, if he's Middle Eastern, then he's got to be good at X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, exactly.
If he's
Boom.
Poor,
yeah.
If he's poor, he can't start with 100 gold. He has to start with 10 gold. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. I don't think they did anything like that just yet. That'd be a little bit too much.
Yeah, that's what I was wanted to ask that question.
Stereotype people.
Okay, bear with me. Isn't the chart existing racist within itself? To say that you don't have enough of something, to me, is the way when you go about it. I don't know. I just don't see any humanity in the way they went about it. Even though
for sure.
So to me, that is racism. Like, not racism. When you're making the race the point of reference, you're making it a racial thing. So for me to say, like, for example, he said a wonderful example too. He said
the article, right?
A Muslim, yeah. He said a Muslim, a gay Muslim. Them creating that character would be inhumane based off of what that actual culture believes in when it comes to that. And that's taken out of the situation when you're just looking at numbers, because your numbers tell you need a gay Muslim. Creating that character would be disrespectful, no?
I think it would be, and there's actually a character in a game in League of Legends who's a gay Middle Eastern man and they purposely made him, I think, to push the boundary on that.
All right, this podcast is sponsored by Angel Blinds. Shout out Angel Blinds. It's a local business based in Atlanta, Georgia. Check them out. Their blinds help you get a new look for your living room, to your bedroom, to your dining room. They even customize kids' blinds with their favorite superhero or princess. Make sure you get Iron Man. He's the best. Shout out. With our promo code FDT, our audience gets 10% off their first purchase. You can find them on Facebook at Angels Blinds or their Instagram at Angels_blinds. Shout out Angels Blinds.
You know what I'm saying? That to me makes it. That to me, the person who's doing that.
I think I know what character you're talking about too, Doc, and that's wild. I didn't know that.
The party who's doing that to me that's racist to me. Like, if you're like, oh, not because of representation or nothing like that, but because of, oh, we just need more black this, we need more Middle East this, and we need more this to satiate a number, to satisfy numbers, it's racist. Like, you're not.
I definitely agree.
When you take
in general, even just on a flat line, like, it's just they're literally breaking people down by race and then spreading from there. So it's just in general racism.
One thing I don't understand is, since a tech company who I would assume espouses like some kind of like tolerance and all this other kind of ideals, why would it? And he even addressed this in this article, because I read this article Doc sent, which was, why didn't you just hire people? Because instead of creating an algorithm to tell you what kind of diversity you need, and then create those characters off that need, why couldn't you just, like, we need Middle Eastern characters, hire a Middle Eastern graphic designer to design characters, because I'm sure his designs are going to be his self-image or some kind of exactly. Or if you need more black characters, hire a black graphic designer. Like, that way you're actually hiring and giving jobs to these people in this community that might need these jobs. So you're actually, one, satisfying the diversity quota, as the term Doc coined, or whatever company was part of that coined that term. One, physically with an actual job, and two, in the game. So so my question, I guess, to y'all is, if they actually did that, had this algorithm, but also hired the people to create those characters in that, I guess, race or whatever, would it still be as bad, or would it not be as bad?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I was reading this article, and this article has like comments, and one of the comments was pretty interesting. They said that they used to work for Blizzard previously, and that one of the things that happened was that these type of things were actually made frequently, but in the past they had a lot of like sister sites in countries internationally that would spot these things and be like, hey, that's kind of fucked up, we shouldn't do that. But he says that now, before he left, he noticed that a lot of those sites had been shut down to basically save money. You know, they were just like, you know, cutting loose ends. Now it's all coming out of one in like location in California. So for them to, it's basically kind of become like a, what's the word, the term you always use? Echo chamber.
Yeah, my
Okay.
boy.
Okay.
So they ended up going into an echo chamber,
If they get a
and
tattoo.
multiple people in that one building, I would assume, signed off on this project. Because that's the fucked up thing to me, is that multiple people thought this was okay. Like, not one person created this and everyone was just like, dude, that's stupid. No, like, several people, they got through PR, especially for them to
PR. That's
broadcast
the
it.
wild
Like,
part.
yeah, like, they put it publicly out there as a blog. Look at us. Like, so a lot
Coolest
of people
monkey in the
signed off
jungle.
on this. Yeah, man. And
Two
I
monkeys
don't know
fucking
how
football.
the fuck they did that. But
Dog, there be sometimes I really be looking at some brands and be like, really? Nobody?
Nobody.
Not one person in the building was like,
Well, real quick, I would scroll down to this part because I wanted to address like all their criteria. So we have at the top, we have culture, race, age, cognitive ability, physical ability, body type, what is that? Facial features and beauty, gender identity, sexual orientation, and I can't read that one right there. Something background.
Socioeconomic background.
Socioeconomic background.
So you can. The weird part is like you can quantify a person's wealth. You can quantify, I guess, age.
Obviously, it's a number that makes
maybe
sense. Yeah.
cognitive ability, maybe physical
Maybe.
ability, and body type and stuff like that. But culture, how the fuck do you quantify that?
How do you
That's it.
quantify race?
You
How do you
gotta get
quantify
offset on
sexual orientation and gender identity? Like, I'm
Yeah,
so
I'm
interested
just
how
like,
they
what?
did this.
He is 75% straight,
But-
25%.
I mean, it is a
Like-
spectrum, right?
I guess.
Yeah, but yo, the real issue I have with this, every time you add a genre, the amount of options you have increases exponentially. Like, for
Amount of
example,
what options are
like, okay, so if I'm like, I got black, let's say a black 45-year-old who with good cognitive ability,
so a
who's-
black Nigerian 45-year-old with great cognitive ability.
body type athletic, facial features, beard, gender identity, pick one, sexual orientation, pick
African
one.
Prince.
Yeah, and socioeconomic background, African Prince. Okay, now I have a Nigerian, same age, 45, with good cognitive ability, excellent physical ability. Everything is the same, except he has no beard. Every option now has to be made according to what they're trying to get, right?
I guess so. Trying to fill a
Yeah, I
check.
guess
So you know how many characters they would fucking need?
How many characters? Because this. Well, the funny thing, real quick, I see what you're asking, but the funny thing I want to point out is, after this blog released, they claim that this isn't currently being used, even though in all the examples they're using Overwatch,
Yeah, I think they
which I thought was funny.
basically fucking retconned all of the stuff they'd already done. I'm pretty sure they had already been using it, and then when they got the backlash, they were like, "Psych, we're just playing as a project. We're thinking about doing it." They were just like, "Burn it off."
But they
burn it
spent
off."
money to get this far.
They definitely did.
Like
Uh,
R&D's
much
definitely
money.
been done too. Like,
How much money?
isn't that the most expensive part of projects? Research and development?
I mean, yes, but like, well, my question is, do they still after the backlash, do they still utilize this and just keep it on the hush hush, or do they just abandon it outright?
There's no way they don't. They can't help but look at this like a tool that's beneficial to them. There's no way a corporation would look at this tool and say this is a negative thing for us. We have to be ahead of the curve. We have to catch which way things are trending, and we have to be able to monetize it or capitalize on it. So yeah, they're gonna pretend just like how Reebok pretended to drop Rick Ross.
All right, and
Yeah,
last
I
point.
think they might still use it. My issue is just like I can't imagine being in the boardroom and just pointing out like, "Hey, we need that X character." You know what I mean? And then everybody in the group being like, "Yeah, we don't have one. Yeah, that's true."
I don't think the boardroom
But it
cares.
just
You think
keeps
the boardroom
going
is-
though.
I think the boardroom's like, if this will make me money, do it. I maybe that's my ignorance or naivety, but I don't think the boardroom is privy to a lot of the gaming culture. But I don't really know the board like that when it comes to Activision or
Got
Blizzard.
you.
That might be true. So maybe you think that like one group of people were doing it and it got past the managers, and then it got out, and the managers now are like, "What the fuck
Well,
did you do?"
Well, think about this. Like, let's say you have to present this to the board, whoever you have to present it to get approval. Logistically speaking, and data speaking, and logically speaking, like this sounds like this was ingenious. Y'all quantified this. This could boost our numbers. Blah blah blah. Like it sounds good. Not taking into consideration how this actually looks as what would it say, like to the public, to the culture, to the whatever, like or the word I think was doc user used, like how humane this might look. All they saw was, wow, y'all brought the data together to form this. Like, I couldn't have done this. This looks great. We can actually utilize this. This will help us with all this diversity thing we're trying to meet, all this blah, blah, blah. Like, they didn't see the ramifications of it. That makes me believe that, like, they didn't understand. They, one, don't understand the community. Two, don't understand what actual diversity means. And three, don't care to actually hire people to actually be diverse.
Yeah, I've actually heard that statement a lot, that they decided to create spider charts instead of just actually hiring.
Yeah, instead of
like, dude, you can't fix it with a chart.
Straight up.
No, I believe you, man, because I've actually been in meetings where people calculate every single thing, and I'm just like, dude, it's cool that you can do it, but should you do it?
Take a step back real quick. Just
Yeah,
real
so
quick. Just take a breath.
You ever watch Jurassic Park, man? It's like, I know we can make the dinosaurs, but should we fucking do it, dude?
So, thanks for making it to the end. We really appreciate it, and hope you all enjoyed the show.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button, that like button, and the notification bell to get notified when we post our clips.
Follow us on Twitter at PodcastFDT. Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok are all fake deep thinking. Check us out, please.
FDT. Peace, y'all.
Peace.